Hey, nerd.
Huh?
So I heard you went to AnimeJapan.
Yeah, I did.
Well, are you gonna make a video about it?
You mean like right now? I mean, sure. Yeah, why not? Just give me a second here. Initially, I was planning to wear that for the video, but it's been raining so heavily the past few days that I never really got a chance to actually get it to even dry properly. So, as you can see, it's still kind of wrinkly as well since couldn't really iron it either since it hasn't even dried yet. So AnimeJapan was just held recently, and compared to last year, it was pretty good. You could really tell that the booths, the exhibits were really ramped up quite a bit, and it was certainly a lot livelier as well. Although I guess it comes as no surprise, seeing this is the first year since the pandemic started that this event has been open to the world, so everyone probably wanted it to be a lot grander than usual. While it might seem a little anecdotal, one thing I've noticed over the years is that AnimeJapan seems to have a bigger proportion of people traveling in from overseas for the event as compared to most other anime events within Japan. And I guess this comes as no surprise considering the fact that the event, by virtue of the fact that it's organized by all the big animation studios themselves, it gives an air of legitimacy and grandness in terms of scale that would probably pull people in, plus the fact that they are also providing information that has never been released yet is something that would I can see it tempting people into wanting to come, especially for this event as well. That said, after experiencing this year's AnimeJapan, it actually got me wondering, is the event really interesting enough to be flying down for? And if so, who would be the type of person that would be able to get the most out of this event and make it worth the trip? Because when I talk to many of my friends, some who live in Japan like me, some who flew in from overseas, and some of the people on stream or online who saw drips and drabs of the event online, it seems like consensus isn't really there on this. Like, it's kind of cool, but whether or not they would want to fly down for it seems to be something that's more mixed. And so that's something I want to look at with you guys today. So you might be wondering as well, who is this nerd and why is he trying to convince you whether or not to come for the event? Well, the answer might shock you. The truth is that I'm actually just a nobody, to be honest. You don't really have to listen to what I say. I'm just a dude who came to Japan to work and who is still working here and who has been attending events like this for years, trying to figure out as much as he can about the events so that he can maximize his enjoyment of them. So I have the good fortune of being both able to attend these events as someone who had to fly in for them in the past, and now as someone living here and seeing the difference, so I can kind of see the pains that exist on both sides. And so I've been going to it for a few years before the pandemic as well. And my goal through this is not so much to convince you whether or not to come down. It's just me hoping that through me doing this, perhaps I can give you guys a more well-rounded view of the event so that you can come to your own decision. Because as I mentioned before, with events like these, with like Comic Cat and the like, it's very subjective, depending on what you want out of the event, whether or not you find it as interesting as they claim it is on the media. So, for those of you who do not know what AnimeJapan is, AnimeJapan was first hosted in 2014 and is one of the biggest anime expos in Japan, being initially formed from a merger of the Tokyo International Anime Fair and the Anime Contents Expo. Jesus, both of those are very hard to remember since those are quite old at this point. But yeah, basically it was formed from two old boomer festivals and formed into one big fair. And I say one of the biggest because depending on how you argue it, it could be seen as the biggest, while it may not occupy at the most amount of space, like comparatively, right? AnimeJapan is held at a place called Tokyo Big Sight, aptly named because the place is a site that is really big in Tokyo. In the entire Big Sight, AnimeJapan uses only the East Halls, while something like Reitaisai, which is just a Toho only event, uses only 2 of the 4 West Halls. AnimeJapan uses 6 of the 8 East Halls in terms of size. And Comic Cat would use all of the 8 East Halls, all of the 4 West Halls, as well as the South Hall, which I have not even mentioned till now. That said, what it does not have in size, it makes up for with the size of the participants. Because for something like Comic Cat is largely an indie fair where most of the participants are indie, and you do have some level of corporate participation, but it's mostly just there to sell stuff. AnimeJapan, you have all the big shots in the anime industry coming together to organize this event and put up displays both of all the animes that they have made till now, as well as some of the stuff that they plan to make in the future. So everyone from Aniplex to Pony Canyon to Ufotable, most of them tend to either be an organizer or a participant in the event. So you really do get a sense of like there being a huge amount of very big players, particularly the animation studios being there. And while there are some goods being sold, typically the big main draw of the event is the displays that are put up by the animation studios. Like even Kadokawa is there as well, for example. Like this year they did something pretty big, which I'll talk about a bit later. And most of them tend to also talk about the stuff that they will be putting out in the future and have stage events, which initially I was looking for an English translated version that I could put in the description of this video and share with you guys, but turns out I couldn't really find one. The most I could find were a few like live streams in Spanish, which they actually translated it live and were watching it live in groups and all that. And that's the closest I could find, which is unfortunate, but the best I can do is to give you guys a link to the official website for AnimeJapan, where they have links to the VODs of each of the individual events that happen at each of the color stages. Additionally, each of the companies that had their own individual stage also has a VOD for it, although you would have to go to each of the individual company websites to see them. With the explanation done, AnimeJapan this year, how good was it? Compared to last year, there's a very obvious jump in quality. It feels like just by virtue of the fact that they knew that the international community would be attending this year, they really just pulled all the stops to make sure that people would really come back again in the future as well, because there's a huge jump in the level of the exhibits and the booths that were set up this year. In fact, I feel like calling it a booth is a bit of an understatement. Like, it really undersells what they were doing this year, because for the most part, it felt more like a mini shop or gallery. Like, when you look at what Aniplex had set up, for example, with this like giant board that goes across the entire booth, and when you compare it to what they had actually done last year as well, there's a lot less wasted open space in general, added on to the fact that the television and rave lights that they have going on are really a lot more extravagant than last year as well, making it really feel like the budget went up. The inside was just a gallery of all their exhibits for animes past and present and future that they would be working on as well. And it's not just them either. When you go to like, even if you're a little bit of a boomer and you want something a little old in terms of games, there's the FGO booth. They kind of did the same as well. Like, you get like this huge like display panels on the outside with the TVs, and when you actually enter, you just have the huge exhibits of all the or some of the servants' weapons. And they brought in cosplayers as well to pose with the exhibits at certain times of the day, which added to the vibes even more and stuff like this. And you really have a lot of booths doing this, like the Kadokawa Anime Park, designed to look like a theme park featuring exhibits from some of their upcoming new animes as well as series that are getting new seasons. As such, you get exhibits ranging from everything like for the new anime Oshinoko, as well as this entire classroom set for the Megumin spin-off from Konosuba, including like all the pictures on the wall, the desks, and the very nice chalk drawing of her on the board, which was actually quite insane. The way they're doing it as well, it's like they just have that one staff member there drawing it all in, which I don't know who they are, or if they were just like paid to do this specifically, but they were doing a pretty good job. You also have the standees of all the characters from the series as well, which lined up on the side of the room over there was pretty nice as well. That, and high above the Kadokawa Park, you can see the visual representation of people who spend too much in video games, floating majestically in the sky. Suffice to say, every booth is doing something like this. Warner Bros. Was there. They set up a mini booth that looked like a movie theater where you could like get a movie ticket, which would have an anime displayed on it, which was kind of cool. They kind of did like this, so it's like a kind of movie ticket thing with the date and time that the first episode will begin airing on it. And obviously you can't really do anything with this, it's just meant for you to look at, but you get a lot of paraphernalia like that, you know, like there's a file, Danmachi. I don't really watch the series, that I don't follow it that much, so if someone wants this, let me know. This is from Bungo Stray Dogs. It says so on the back. That's how I know for a fact there's no script for me to look at, because all of this is never scripted, because I'm very bad at that. But there's pamphlet. mini manga. Like, they give out a lot of stuff during the event itself, and I find it very... So there really is a lot of stuff that you end up picking up. For people who are interested in like collecting this kind of stuff, it's interesting, although you're probably gonna get a very big variety of stuff that you may or may not want, because like, even for this ticket, for example, it was randomized. You had a chance to get a bunch of different stuff, and I was just an epic gamer enough to get the JoJo one because I'm clearly just too cool like that. Epic gamer, dude. That was fucking horrible. There are quite a lot of very cool exhibitions. Like, I'll continue like rolling them as I speak until there's a need to transition. But otherwise, yeah, you know, with all of these different booths from all the different major anime studios just putting out huge exhibitions like this, and each booth isn't small either. Like, you can see from like the scale and the people walking by that these are huge. And you also have like mini games in some, like aside from the Warner Bros. Movie theater experience with the randomized thing, you kind of have this booth with a giant gacha machine in there, where you have to turn the human-sized gacha turny thing, and then you get a very small item out of it. The queue for that one was quite insane, so I didn't actually try it for myself, but yeah, it really did have a lot of booths doing this. And when most of the big booths are like this, and you're just walking down a lane of them, seeing all the different billboards with all the different animes playing, and all the literal like bright lights and sensory overload frying your brain, it's actually kind of cool. And the thing is, like, with how grand it sometimes feels, especially when you're walking past like the Aniplex ones in general, it really feels like it can give like even Times Square a run for its money. What are you doing? I said Times Square. Not the American one. Like, what? Do I really need to explain this to you? Yes, thank you. Yeah, it really does feel like it could give even Times Square a run for its money. Just as there were booths that were grand and big and opulent, there were also booths that were opposite. They were rather small and simple. Like this one, for example. The one for Medios, which makes the JoJo animes, was also just like one panel like this, and that's about it. For these studios which are a bit more specialized in small scale, you can expect that this booth would be smaller, but even then, it's still pretty cool. I'm just seeing the standees there like that as well. You also have companies like Cospa, for example, which sold the shirt that you see behind me, among many others. They had quite a few new stuff, new goods that they were displaying there. Even Cospa, the company that it is, had a really long queue outside of the booth, which, guys, real talk here for a second. Like, you know, you and me, we are all human person things, right? We all have varying opinions and like views on things. You know, some people like pineapple on their pizza. Some people like corn. Some people don't want any toppings at all. They just want to eat the crust. And then you have people like me who just want to eat the flour instead. The hell is this? This ain't natural enough. That actually shook my whole room, huh? But that said, can we all like agree on something if you ever come to like Japan for an event? If you do, like, don't do what you see these people in the line doing and like rush to queue for Cospa. Like, I know like Cospa's goods are relatively a well-known brand, but like Cospa is like the Gap of anime goods. Like, they don't run out of stuff very often, and even if they do run out of stuff at an event, you can bet your ass that they would resell it after the event. They typically do not sell like event limited goods, and they tend to stock enough supply to sell their goods even after the event. Like, I can understand that maybe for some people, like going back to your home country, it may not be as easy to get, in which case, get it, but don't rush and prioritize Cospa, because they typically don't run out of stuff, and if they do, you can probably pre-order it and like get another time, or go down to one of the actual stores that they have to buy it instead. Because especially for an event like this, there's plenty of stuff to do, plenty of stuff that rarely happens outside of the event. So don't queue for like Cospa, which is like a store that typically would be something you could prioritize later and still make it. Like, I got that going at the near the end of the convention, quite close to the time that it was about to close, and it still was in stock. Most stuff was in stock. Even the Bochi stuff, which like during Comic-Cat like completely stocked out, the stuff they brought this time was in stock. This has become a slightly long tangent, but it's just a heads up to you guys if you do go for events in the future. Because especially when it comes to Anime Japan in particular, you have so much different stuff you could do. Like there's all these exhibits to visit, all the different stores which you typically would not be able to go to, like if it's not a convention. That I would recommend going to all of that first. And more importantly, and this is the biggest reason this event is so interesting, would be the fact that there's a lot of stage events going on there. Like I think online it's very easy to find stuff for the 3 colored stage, the red, blue, and green, I think. Like those 3 stages are the ones where you can find the events for very easily online, like what was going on at each of the stages. But aside from those, like most booths, especially the big anime production studios, also have their own stages, which I don't have a video of because they ban all filming and pictures around those. So I didn't want my camera to get confiscated and everything to get wiped. So I did my best to stay clear of those areas. But every booth had one. Kadokawa's Anime Park had one. Aniplex had one. And the thing is that there's so many and all of them have stuff going on at the same time that going for everything is pretty tough. And you kind of want to plan ahead which stages you want to go to. If you want to go to the 3 colored ones, you are going to need to have to purchase a ticket in advance that allows you to go for it. So take note of that. If you do plan to go and are interested in the stage events, the stage events themselves are typically, well, I mean, there's a big variety, and if you are the kind who's interested in it, you would probably get quite a big bang for your buck if you purchase these stage tickets, because for the most part, most of these are either like reveals of some new anime that's coming out, interviews with the seiyus for certain stuff, like just talking about their work or experience with some of the anime. Same for the producers and the directors. If you're the kind who's interested in listening to all this talk about not just new information, but like the experiences of people within the industry, like be it just the seiyus and their banter and like the fun stuff they get to do, or the producers talking about their inspiration stuff, like there's plenty of interesting stages to view. But therein lies the bigger issue, and why I say that this event may or may not be something you're interested in, because a big part of the event is going around the booths and just looking at the different exhibits that they have, and the other main half is going to the stages and listening to what they have to say. The issue with these stages is more so the fact that if you don't understand Japanese, you kind of don't really get much out of it. Being there to feel the hype is interesting. Like going to live events or going to like, idol lives or just music performances in general, like being in the crowd as everything's happening, there's obviously that like hype to it as well. But at the same time, if you're going there without knowing the language, I feel like some of the hype might be lost, and you would have a harder time trying to like pick up what's going on as compared if you watch it online. It feels like something that if you can understand Japanese, you'll probably get way more of it, and it'll probably be way more interesting. And then when it comes to the exhibits, it's a bit of a iffy one, because like if you're the kind who's into it, just like looking around, looking at all the different exhibits, it's kind of fun, kind of like what I did with like previous events as well. By virtue of the fact that most of the participants are big companies, it's really just a case of them putting stuff there for you to look at, and then you look at it, and then you look at the live, you look at the talk shows, and then you buy some stuff at most, and then you go home. Like in terms of interacting, if you're not there in a group, you don't really get as much of it, I suppose. Well, I mean, you do have like photo booths that you can take pictures in as well, like the one with the prop over here of the hammer, and the person over there that you can take a picture with, and you have the life-size plushies like the Gotobu no Hanayome one. This was the ReZero one, which you could take pictures with. There was one for Suzume as well, the new Shinkai Makoto movie. The guy makes good work, by the way. I recommend watching his stuff if you have not. You can actually take a picture of some of the cats from the latest movie Suzume and stuff like this. Like there are booths that you can take pictures with as well. There were the small like interactive stuff I mentioned before as well, but for the most part, you don't really get a very like direct interaction with others, is what I'm saying. All these don't sound like things that are interesting to you if you're like a person who's more into the doujin side of stuff, be it the safe for work, interesting like trivial stuff about trains and vending machines and whatnot, then I would say you could probably choose not to go for this. You wouldn't be missing out too much. But yeah, I guess that's all for today's video. AnimeJapan, pretty cool event. But yeah, thank you all for watching to this part if you actually did. I feel like in terms of the coverage for the event, I didn't do as detailed a job specifically as with the Blue Archive ones, although that is just more due to the fact that with this one, it's more overarching, I suppose, like covering each and every single point in every single gallery would probably make this like a few hour long video. If I were to go down like, oh yeah, this is from the Bunny Girl anime, and that's one's from the ReZero, and then I do this for every single booth, it would take a lot of time. So I figured that it might be better if I just cut it down to something like short and compact like this. I hope that at least it will be something that would be informative for you to be able to understand whether or not this event is something you would want to come down for in the future. Yeah, hopefully this video gave you more information about the event that you did not already know. Hopefully it gave you more insight into it so you could get a better understanding of whether or not you would want to come down for this or some other event in the future. As in more of a whether you want to do this or something else. Whether the other event would be more interesting, I guess you have to watch more videos to find out as I go to them all and log down my experiences at them. The next video I do would probably come out at the end of the month. I'm still trying to complete the video of the very bad game from 2009 that I mentioned before. Like I mentioned in the last video as well, which came out just last week, so there isn't not much time has passed and the entire week was spent editing this, so haven't gotten much into it. But that game, because of how much of a mess it is, taking more time than expected to finish. So hopefully end of the month, otherwise I have a backup video for then. But yeah, I'm really hoping this comes out so that I can like focus on other stuff and buy another bad game to play as well. If you're interested in seeing more about like the weird all bad games in Japan, more on like events in general, or more like well just different doujin content that you can find that is safe for work and very interesting as well. Like I find that that's something that gets very underrepresented, so I'm planning to do more videos like introducing those. So if you're interested in all of that, do feel free to subscribe. The original plan was to make it 2 videos a month, but like sometimes if an event comes out in the middle of the month, I kind of get sidetracked and try to add that in to the month as well. So it's like more videos released during the month. I'll see if I can do a little more like shorter 10-minute videos in the middle of the month, which hopefully would still be as entertaining as well. Though I need to think of like what to do for those videos, so that might take a little while. That's it. I feel like I've taken up more of you guys' time like explaining stuff like this, which you guys may not even be interested in than I should, so I apologize. But thank you for watching to this point. I'll see you on the next video, hopefully. So take care and bye-bye.